Gospel, when we examine, we see the difficulty of Jesus. The disciples were with him, they were eating with him, they were walking with him, they were listening to him. And Jesus didn't want any other people when he was teaching them about his passion, death, and resurrection. So this is the second prediction about the death of Jesus. The Son of Man is handed over. He is going to be killed. And on the third day, he is going to be resurrected. He is revealing the plan of God the Father to the disciples. But they did not understand. They were not bothered about what Jesus was talking about. And so they were discussing among themselves who is going to be the first. And Jesus is asking them, what were you discussing on the way? They were silent because they knew Jesus was teaching something and they were not listening to him. Therefore, they did not know what he was speaking about. But among them, they were discussing who is going to be the first. And so they were thinking about a political liberator who is going to save them from the clutches of Roman Empire. And so when Jesus rises to power, who is going to be on his right side? Who is going to be on his left side? And who is going to be the greatest among them? And that was their discussion. And all of us want to be the first. All of us want to be the wealthiest. All of us want to, some way or the other, win. And that is the attitude and the mentality every one of us having. And against that background, Jesus is telling, whoever wants to be the first has to become the servant of all. Become least among all. Serve the other. Care for other people. And that is what passion and death and resurrection of Jesus Christ is all about. Jesus emptied himself, taking the form of a servant, born like any one of us, underwent most shameful death on earth, and as a sinner, as a culprit, and then he was risen from the dead, being humiliating himself, humbling himself, washing the feet of the disciples, and then for obeying God the Father, he was risen on the third day. Humiliating, and God is exalting Jesus Christ. The value of humility is such. When we humble ourselves, when we serve other people, when we love other people, we are going to be great in the kingdom of God. That is what in the first reading we hear. A struggle of a righteous person to live his life and the worldly passions he is facing. And so the righteous person obeys God and obeys the commandment of God. Therefore, he will be exalted. He is going to be saved. Now, let us examine and see, are we following the humility of Jesus Christ? Very often, we get angry. Why are we angry? Just because we are not humble and simple enough to accept other people. We want to force upon our ideas. We want to argue with them. We want to win over them and want to show that our point of view is the best or the greatest. And so not ready to listen to other people, their feelings, their viewpoint, and so want to force upon other people our ideas. That is why we get angry for small little things. Secondly, we do not admit our mistake. We know that what we have done is wrong. Still, we are not ready to acknowledge our mistake. It's a sign that we do not have the humility. Humility is not simply a virtue of humbling ourselves and then lowering ourselves. Rather, we also should have the courage to admit that I have done wrong and I am really sorry. And instead of that, what do we do in our family? We always argue, we get try to say that what I have done is perfectly all right. Suppose we humble ourselves, even if we are right, we accept those facts and then humble ourselves, the relationship is going to build up. And then we are giving greater value to our children and we are stepping towards God, we are stepping towards kingdom of God. And so lack of humility is seen in our behavior when we are not ready to admit our fault and admit our mistakes. Third thing we find in ourselves is that we always boast of our achievements. We try to say the best about ourselves, never about our weakness. Therefore, when we are boasting, be sure we are not humble, we are not simple. Even what we have not done or what we have not achieved, we attribute to ourselves. Therefore, we try to boast over other people. So, boasting also is a sign that we lack humility. And the fourth and the last is we always try to justify ourselves. Whatever we have done may be wrong, may be right, but we try to justify what we have done is right. It's a clear sign that we are not humble and simple enough. And so God is calling us to be humble, to be simple, just like Mother Mary, just like Jesus Christ himself. And so it is, as scholars say, St. Francis was loving Jesus due to the humility of Jesus Christ, self-emptying of Jesus. The first instance is God the Father sending his only Son into this world. A small little child, God becomes just like any one of us. The humility of God, humility of Jesus Christ, humbling himself. Secondly, we see him washing the feet of the disciples. The Master, the Lord of heaven and earth, is washing the feet of the disciples. Thirdly, we see Jesus standing before Pilate, King of kings, King of whole earth and heaven, standing just like a culprit before Pilate. And finally, he is on the cross, not even having a place to lay his head. Total self-emptying of Jesus Christ attracted St. Francis. And that is what we are all called to do, that we have to empty ourselves. We have to be humble, simple, and share and care our family. And that becomes good examples for the coming generation. During this Eucharistic celebration, Jesus is coming down to us in a small form of bread. Again, another form of self-emptying of God, humbling himself to come to us sinners, to save us, to redeem us, give life to all of us. So let us follow the example of Jesus Christ, who humbled himself, who is poor, humble, and crucified Christ.